Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jordan Snyder, Product Manager here at AgencyAnalytics. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar all about how to turn phone calls into customers with call intelligence and reporting. We're going to get started very soon as we wait just a few minutes for others to join. If you have any specific topics for future webinars for us, we would love to hear from you, so please feel free to let us know after the session. We'll be emailing a recording of the webinar once we wrap things up today, so no worries if you're missing anything. Stay tuned, and we'll kick things off in just a minute. Alrighty, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday or Friday, depending on what part of the world you're joining us from. My name is Jordan Snyder, and today we're going to be walking through how we can all turn phone calls into customers with call intelligence and reporting. Now, inbound phone calls are a really high purchase intent activity in anybody's buying journey, even for all of us. When someone picks up that phone, they've already done all of the research that they feel like they need to do, like reading business reviews, checking out your past work, and they have chosen specifically to call you. Call leads are actually 10 to 15 times more likely to convert. So an inbound call is critical to connecting businesses with potential customers. I'm joined today by some truly amazing people without which this session could not be possible. First up, we have two amazing gentlemen from Sprocket Digital, a data-driven growth agency located in New Zealand. We're joined today by Josh Sexton, Digital Campaign Director, and Luke Dane, Managing Director. Gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourself really quick to everybody?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Jordan. Great to be here and look forward to talking a little bit about the value of phone calls and what they can do for your marketing and for your business.
Yeah, g'day everybody. Likewise, great to be here and looking forward to it.
Thanks, gentlemen. Now, next up, I'd like to introduce a very special guest with us today, James O'Neill, the CEO and founder of WildJar, and a big advocate, and I think ultimately the reason why we have this integration and why we're all here today. James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Thanks to AgencyAnalytics for having me today and WildJar. And yeah, again, really excited to show everybody and talk through our integration and around call intelligence for clients. So.
Awesome. So the AgencyAnalytics team is working on a wide variety of educational content to help agencies of all shapes and sizes get the most out of their marketing campaigns. So if you ever have a topic that you'd like us to cover in an upcoming webinar, then please let us know after the session. So before we get started, I'd like to encourage our viewers to check us out on social media, where you can stay up to date with more content, marketing tips, and overall advice on how to optimize your agency's reporting capabilities. This webinar will also be uploaded into YouTube, where you can check this and all of our other awesome webinars out. All right, everybody, we have got some really awesome content to share today, so I hope everybody's excited. If you want to react to some emojis or throw some numbers in the chat there, I think we're all going to be really excited. We're going to have a really awesome session together today. So to get us started, today, we're going to be talking about the call experience. We're going to talk a little bit about what this means, and James and the WildJar team are actually going to talk about exactly what is in the experience of a call and what it really means in 2021. Then we're going to hear from the guys at Sprocket, where they're going to talk about the value of calls and why tracking them is mission critical for marketing agencies. Of course, I'm going to spend a little bit of time taking us through some of the awesome parts of the WildJar integration and how everybody here can start automating their call reporting. Now, we're even going to be lucky and get a chance to see some of the dashboards and reports that Sprocket uses for their call tracking inside of AgencyAnalytics, and even hear from them on how they choose to automate their call reporting. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we're going to leave ample time for questions and answers. If everybody can see on the right-hand side menu of Livestorm, we have a questions tab. If you'd like to throw your questions up in there throughout our session, please do. At the very end, we'll go top to bottom and we'll answer anything we've missed after we've had a chance to go through everything. Now, as I mentioned, feel free to throw all of the questions that you've got in our questions tab. The video recording will be sent out after our webinar. And in addition, we'll be sending out a short feedback survey. We'd love your feedback on how you thought this webinar was today, and of course, any ideas for future topics. Okay, so to get us started today, I want to make sure everybody's paying attention. So I'm going to go ahead and publish a poll. So I have a question for everybody here. If you can open up the menu on the right-hand side and enter the polls area, I'd be curious to understand, does everybody here already have a call tracking tool at your agency? We'll give everybody a couple seconds, but we're going to leave this poll open. So we're going to review all of the answers at the very end of our session. But I'm curious to hear if yes, no, or maybe some agencies have a mixture of answers there. Awesome. So thanks everybody who's taking a look at that poll and sending their submissions in. Once again, we'll take a look at all of the responses at the end of our session. So far, you've probably heard us mention the call experience a couple times now, and I'm just sure that you're all begging to know what exactly that means. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to James to take us through exactly that, the call experience.
Great, thanks, Jordan. So I believe, so to understand the call experience, first of all, we need to have a better understanding of the customer and of their journey and how or why these customers arrived on your website or found your business. So it is 2021 and we've seen significant changes on businesses and business marketing and how it's evolved from traditional formats, from advertising on billboards or mail outs to very complex digital journeys now. We're seeing companies and businesses around the world spending a large amount of money on digital marketing, and they're all with the same goal: to get their product and services in front of the right people and the right audience across multiple online channels. And as an agency, you've worked extremely hard to collect all this data from every leg of that digital buying journey. But when a customer leaves your website and then they pick up the phone and call you, this trail, this digital journey goes cold. And for many businesses in today's world, conversation is key in that path to purchase, and which ultimately happens when the customer or consumer picks up the phone and calls you. So if you think about that call experience and you're thinking about actual conversations, these customers have chosen your brand and they're literally telling you what they want over the phone and how you are going to make them happy. However, if the insights from your digital investments are telling you nothing about the consumer or their buying intent before they call, then you're only getting half that picture. And that's essentially where WildJar comes in. So we unlock this data. So we bridge the information gap from the online world to that offline world. And our goal is to work with agencies to help them understand what that customer's path to purchase is from that first digital click they've taken to that final sales call. We capture critical data for every sales call that comes into your business or your contact center. So now you can actually see which web page your customers are calling from and which campaign actually led them there. You can measure talk time, call duration, or the status of the call, so whether it's answered or missed. And you can even see and hear actual conversations too, so with call transcripts and audio recordings. So now you're starting to understand, why are people reaching out in the first place? what are the problems that they're having, how are your business or how are your agents actually responding to these phone calls. And this has really been a critical shift that we've noticed on our side in the way that agencies are now presenting themselves. We've seen, we partner with agencies such as Sprocket Digital, where they're not just focused on obtaining media budgets anymore or purely looking at performance based on conversions. They're more strategic advisors to their clients. And we're seeing agencies starting to listening to call recordings on behalf of their clients, starting to give insights into exactly what that customer is inquiring about, working with the business owners or the teams. So could they have done better over the phone? What words or offers are leading to conversions? And we're even seeing if the business is missing calls, which, as an agency, you've done all this hard work to drive leads in, and if the business is missing a call, you're using triggers such as email notifications through WildJar or triggering SMS notifications to the consumer to let them know that they've been acknowledged and that someone from the business will actually contact them back. And we're also seeing the agency then following up with the business to make sure that they have contacted the customer back. So to improve that customer and ultimately their call experience. And this is really that next step that we're seeing in the journey for call tracking and evolving from that call or conversation, evolving into the call or conversation intelligence. And we've been championing this since our inception, and it's amazing to see agencies focusing more on outcomes for businesses rather than just the activity. So call volume. So customers are ready to talk. And so if I go back a little bit and we talk about the experience, we see, well, when businesses shut their doors, their physical doors throughout the pandemic, there was a lull in activity while owners scrambled to find ways to continue to communicate and to keep transactions going. And we saw call volumes decline significantly during the lockdown periods, starting through the US, the UK, and unfortunately still going in New Zealand. But Australia has reopened up again now. But customers and companies were doing less business overall. And when businesses did reopen, we saw phone call levels climb significantly in a lot of verticals, even surpassing pre-COVID lockdown levels too. And businesses have made changes internally to accommodate consumers. And however, at the same time, consumers have also made huge changes with the way that they do business. There's a lot more digital activity. But at the same time, they're relying more on calls to get information fast, not only on products and services, but they're also interested on the latest and safest ways to transact as well. There's a more emotion on the phone, and the consumers have done all that research online. They've chosen your brand. They want to speak to somebody. They want to speak to a person. And your job is to give the customer that same fantastic customer experience over the phone that they received online and they keep online. The final piece of the puzzle. So with the knowledge of phone calls increasing, there's increasing competition amongst brands online, and reiterating Jordan, knowing that phone calls convert 10 to 15 times higher than any other channel. How can you make sure that you're maximizing your return on your investment and you're attributing all your conversions and sales back to the correct advertising channel? Well, that's essentially where our integration with AgencyAnalytics can help. It's uniting marketing and sales, and it's closing that last gap of that buying journey. So now you can understand your customers at a deeper level. You can start spotting emerging trends And then you can start funneling those insights back into that buying journey too. You're now optimizing every opportunity presented to you over the phone to drive revenue. So is your agency connecting these puzzle pieces for you? Good question. So what I thought would be great to do is to hand over to Josh and Luke at Sprocket Digital, who can walk through their experience around call tracking and their agency too.
Great. Thanks, James. So first and foremost, Sprocket Digital prides itself on being a data-driven agency, which means that we try our best to limit our assumptions around what will and won't work for our clients. We need to measure everything and let the data dictate how to best allocate budget between ad platforms and campaigns. At first glance, you'd be forgiven to assume that tracking everything on a website is easy. You know, it is all digital after all. But there are a number of complexities that we often encounter when trying to measure the most valuable interactions on a website. Most commonly, how do we track form submissions without a confirmation landing page? And how do we measure phone calls more accurately than just phone number clicks? The problem with phone number click tracking is that it's heavily biased towards mobile users. And this is due to those mobile users having the ability to call from the same device that they're browsing on by simply clicking the phone number. Whereas in a desktop situation, the user has to actually dial the number from a separate device, which is where that tracking is lost. Now, from a marketing perspective, the last thing we want to do is bring device bias into the mix when we're assessing and optimizing a client's marketing account. Form submission accuracy can be remedied through the use of Google Tag Manager, which is a platform for creating unique marketing tags that are only triggered under specific circumstances. For example, we could only track button text that contains the word submit and is located on the Contact Us page for a form submission. Call tracking, however, is a bit trickier, and this is where we have to rely on a third-party call tracking platform like WildJar to improve our capability. And it makes the process really easy and allows us to import tracked calls into Google Analytics and Google Ads so that we can measure and optimize our marketing activity towards high-quality calls. We are able to assess call quality through the duration metrics or listening to past recordings. Listening to those recordings can be a bit labor intensive, but it also allows us to not only determine which campaigns are generating the most call volume, but which are generating the highest number of new customer inquiries for a business. These recordings can also come in handy for business owners themselves by allowing them to assess the ratio of answered to unanswered calls, receive email notifications of any missed calls and return them back immediately, assess the quality of phone service provided by internal customer service staff, or provide a better idea of the true value that marketing is actually providing for them in their business. So, you know, in a nutshell, it's something, especially for lead gen, that we can't live without. And we're really happy to be partnered with the likes of WildJar and with AgencyAnalytics that just help with the whole seamless integration and reporting for us and our clients. Thanks, Jordan.
Awesome. James, Josh, you guys both rock. Thank you so much. It's funny for me, you know, as perhaps like a younger guy, to hear us talk about like the value of calls. I think perhaps there's a lot of perceptions, especially outside business, about what calls can mean. But it's kind of crazy for me to even hear James talk about the fact that call trends are on such an exponential rise. Okay, so I'm gonna break up some of our speaking with publishing another poll here. Once again, we'll give everybody just a couple minutes to answer. So if you could turn your attention towards our poll tab, I have another question. Do your marketing reports to clients already include that call data automatically? It's funny, right? Like I think that data could be available in a lot of different ways, but I might argue that if it's not happening automatically without you having to do much manual work, then you're probably not doing quite the right way. Okay, awesome. So we'll leave this poll open. If everybody just wants to continue to throw your answers in there, maybe we'll have some conversations about what we find in there afterwards. Okay. So I think it's fair to say by this point in time, we all agree that call tracking is now more important than ever. And with call volumes increasing across the globe, all on the rise, I think it's really, really important that we all as agencies get a really strong handle on call reporting, almost as if it were one of those basic types of things that we all need to figure out. Kind of like from day one, we really have to have a strong handle on it. And, thankfully, there are some really amazing tools out there today like WildJar that help us solve this exact problem space. So I want to get a little bit more specific with everybody here now and talk about the WildJar and AgencyAnalytics integration. Number one, and perhaps the obvious one, of course, is simply being able to track those call metrics. AgencyAnalytics is meant to be your one-stop shop and to put the data that agencies need all in one place. So by using AgencyAnalytics and pulling in those call metrics, you can really use our platform to zone in on those KPI indicators for, well, I suppose any really inbound call efforts that we've got. You can easily find those new calls versus returning calls, answered versus missed, average call durations, the call source. I think especially attribution can be tricky with calling. Like, unless you were to ask over the phone, like some traditional mean, I'm not really sure other than tools how that would even be possible. And there are just so many places to get calls from. One of our clients could get a call from Google My Business, their website, an advertising extension, and it gets really confusing. And without the right tracking tool and the right dynamic phone numbers, those calls can so easily be missed in our reports. This one is my personal favorite, perhaps, is being able to listen to those call recordings. It's one thing for us to say that we're getting somebody calls, but I think it's definitely another for us to try to, validate and understand what's happening in those calls. For a lot of reasons, I think we want to be able to verify the lead quality. I mean, that's really important. We can generate 30 leads for somebody, but if none of them really pan out, then those 30 leads are kind of a dead end. And we want to be able to ensure with our clients that calls are being handled professionally and appropriately. God forbid we were to generate like a ton of leads for our clients one month and they say, none of them panned out, none of them really worked well. Well, so to say that we can probably validate that by listening into any call with the click of a button, honestly. And even one better, if listening to calls sounds perhaps too time-consuming for you, then I know that WildJar can use this call intelligence tool that it has within their platform that allows WildJar to both transcribe and extract the emotion and sentiment automatically of the calls, which is pretty freaking fantastic. So now we're talking about using some really awesome technology to automatically assess these calls and how people are feeling in them. And I think ultimately we need to be able to monitor, predict, and tell our clients how their call performance is actually going. It's just as important as getting the actual calls, right? We need to make sure that our clients can see exactly how many calls are being answered, the average duration, and any of those other important metrics that we have. Again, God forbid, if we miss reporting on calls or not attributing them correctly, then we miss a really big chance to communicate the value and financial business impact of the work that we do. That would suck if a client invested a lot of good money, trusted you, and by a simple gap in your reporting, if you weren't able to really tell them why you were so awesome and all of the amazing work that you did. It'd be a real shame. Now, what I think a lot of people are really going to love to chat about, and I think this is going to make for some great discussion topics closer to our Q&A, is having that automated call reporting. So above all, we love to see when agencies can take, all of their reporting and specifically take these call metrics and integrate it into some of AgencyAnalytics tooling. And it's not necessarily complicated. I think when people hear automated reporting, they're like, oh my goodness, I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. But I'm talking really simply about using AgencyAnalytics native platform automation. One big thing that we try to preach is getting all of our users' data in one place. And I think our universal dashboards are a great way to do that. Being able to take data from dozens of different sources, specific metrics, graphs, charts, gauges, whatever you want, and being able to put that onto one single view for our client. And when they see all of their data together, I think that's a really powerful feeling. We have some really fantastic automated report scheduling within our platform, so you can easily devise what kind of reports that you want to send and have that automatically go out whatever cadence you want to. In addition, we even incorporate the idea of approval workflows in case there's a manager or marketer that wants to take a look at that data before it goes out the door. Now, you can share all of this dashboards, the reports, everything I've mentioned so far as links, as emails, or even as PDF. And what's great about that is that we help you measure the downloads, the opens, or the click-through rates of all of those reports. And last but certainly not least, I think the time saver that we all look for is being able to template those reports, right? Like, we want to build an amazing, beautiful report that includes everything that we want it to. And then I want to be able to click a button and copy that out to all of my other clients. And as such, as I've described, is absolutely possible. So it's a matter of taking the content and the metrics through the AgencyAnalytics and WildJar integration, baking it into their dashboards and the reporting tools that we have, and then leveraging the native automation components of those tools to let your clients know the awesome work that you do. Now, I am a huge, huge fan of personalization in the marketing space. You know, I know that any opportunity to personalize the content or the marketing and the work that we do is always going to compound the engagement and the success of the campaigns that we always do. And, you know, rightfully so, you're going to want to be able to personalize everything that you do for your reports as well. So we have some awesome tools that came out recently, custom metrics and goals, if you will, which are great ways to personalize these dashboards and tools. Custom metrics effectively allows you to combine through algorithmic formulas, metrics from all different sources and combine them however you want to into a new bespoke metric. And goals are a great way of taking a metric, providing a value to it, and being able to track a goal of a progression towards a given metric. You know, I think some good examples could be if we're sending our clients reports that includes the number of leads or the number of sales that we got them, then I think it would be important that in addition to, say, form submission leads, that we were to include submissions for, I suppose, calls there as well. And we could use a custom metric to combine form submissions and the number of calls to create a true and accurate bespoke metric for your agency that says, you know, these are all of your leads from all of your sources. And I suppose one better, if you want to be able to put a goal on those leads, that you can create a goal based off a custom metric and being able to measure your progress on that every single month. Clients love self-serve access to things, and AgencyAnalytics provide our users with the ability to log into our platform directly. So if you're not there to show your client their data, then you can provide them access to let them take a look at that themselves. And then finally, being able to white label these call tracking reports, you know, being able to upload your logo, color scheme, hosting your own domain, literally taking your agency's branding and throwing it across every instance of your platform. A big focus of ours is always trying to build your reputation, and we try to build white label tools that help make that possible. Okay, so next we're going to hear again from the gentleman at Sprocket, and they're going to share with us some of the ways they help manage clients and their leads with reporting.
I'll take this. Thanks, Jordan. So I guess some of the things we do, obviously clients have 24/7, they have access to the reporting anytime, so they can access it, have a look and see what's going on. So that keeps their finger on the pulse in terms of what's going on at any time. They're getting email notifications from inbound calls, of course, coming in via WildJar. They have custom automated reports sent weekly, monthly. We've got call tracking lead sheets, which we'll see a little bit later, via a Google Sheets integration, and that's updated every 24 hours. That gives insights into terms of what types of leads coming in from calls. And we also use Google Analytics quite a lot in terms of our reporting as well.
Awesome. So I'm just going to flip over my screen for you here, Luke. Just give me 1 second, and I'm going to put up our video that we've got to show everybody. Okay. Sure. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and play the video.
Okay, so this is just a typical dashboard setup we have for a lead gen client. This particular example is of a client in the air conditioning industry. The integrations we use here are Google Analytics, Google Ads, call tracking coming in via WildJar again, their Facebook page. We also have goals and conversions, showcasing on and offline conversions coming in. And obviously that's the call tracking side of things too. And down below, you'll see the call tracking lead sheet that we talked about that we use Google Sheets on. We integrate that in. We monitor the calls and we label them accordingly. And that's done in-house. And it helps our clients understand what's coming in, but it also helps us enhance campaign performance, identifying the good leads from the bad. And on the other slide there, we also pull all the juicy, good data coming in from WildJar into the call tracking portal. And it showcases call volume, missed calls, new and returning call metrics. And also we can identify where those leads are coming from. In this particular example, we're tracking calls coming in from both organic and paid. You can also listen to those calls, obviously. The client can do that and we can do it as well to identify quality of lead.
Hey, that's really awesome, Luke. Question though, I actually didn't even realize this. I'm gonna back us up here a little bit. Was there this on the dashboard right here? Sorry, can you clarify? This is the Google Sheets integration that you're using here?
It is, yeah. So we internally track these calls and listen to the calls, and we'll label them accordingly. So an inquiry is an inbound lead. We can use that data again to enhance what we're doing, but it also gives real transparency in terms of campaign performance for the client.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for clarifying. That's actually kind of cool. I love it. Integrationception, I suppose.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, it's a great tool. Actually, we found it very useful.
That's an awesome demo. Well, thanks, Luke, for letting us get the chance to take a look at some of those dashboards that you and your team use.
No problem.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen of our webinar this afternoon, I have to say our first session today has just flown by. We're actually almost at time, believe it or not. And this ultimately concludes the first part of our presentation. I hope everybody has learned a lot. As somebody who has helped prepare for this session, I have even learned a lot. So I hope the same can be said for everybody else here. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and move into our QA part of our segment. So we'll go ahead and I'll open up our questions tab here in a second. But if we haven't seen any yet, please, I encourage anybody with burning questions for James, Josh, Luke, or myself to please come into chat, throw them in the question tab, whatever you'd like to do. We'd be happy to talk to you direct and ask some questions. And while we give everybody a couple chances to answer those questions, I'm just going to kind of take a look at the poll results here to see what we've got. So the first portion of our poll, do you already use a call tracking tool at your agency? 89% of participants here today said yes, they do, with an astounding 11% saying sort of. I'd be curious if you were one of the individuals who answered sort of to this question. I'm curious, how do you sort of have a call tracking tool in place today? I'd be curious to hear what your solution is for that right now. And just for our second poll here, our question was, does your marketing reports already include call data automatically? So we had 71% of our users say yes, and 29% of our users say sort of. Nobody said no to either question, which is a little bit surprising, but I suppose good then. I would ask the same question to anybody in the chat if you're still here. Anybody that answered sort of to this chat answer, I'd be curious. What does sort of mean to having call data in your reports automatically? What does that look like for you right now? Oh, awesome. I think we got something from Matthias here. Google Ads offer a call report for their click-to-call ads. Oh, yes, of course. We use those reports, but those are only for those types of ads. I mean, I think that's fair to say. I imagine that having to manage all of those different phone numbers like that would be really difficult. If I'm not mistaken, and James, you're going to have to correct me on this one for sure, but I believe that WildJar has like the idea of dynamic phone numbers that might make this sort of thing easier. Like if they were to use some of those dynamic phone numbers from WildJar in their ads, would that kind of thing be helpful?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Google Ads, the forwarding numbers, to be honest, it's been quite fantastic to educate the market as well in terms of the value of the call. however, as Matthias has said, that it does only track Google Ads, and it only shows when a customer calls from that particular medium. So we're, as what we see anyway, using our dynamic number technology, the customer's journey, as I said before, is so complex. People don't just land on your website from a Google ad and then call straight away. There's a lot more research and a lot more back and forward between different advertising channels. So they might have seen a Facebook ad and then went to Google Ads and then called. So you get the conversion there, but you lose the attribution to Facebook. And without having integration such as an AgencyAnalytics or an integration into Google Analytics or an integration back into Facebook campaigns, you'll never get that attribution. And by offering, having a solution like WildJar, which we automatically have that integration off the back, we can send those calls, whether it's come from Google Ads, Facebook, into any platform that you want, so that you can actually get detailed reporting on it, which then ultimately goes back into AgencyAnalytics, and you can have even more reporting for your clients. So yeah, it's definitely sort of, I guess, as well, Jordan. So that's good.
Just another example, I suppose, of how there can just be like little gaps in call tracking, like for all the reasons you mentioned and more, like jumping between ad platforms or like multi-touch attribution. It boggles my mind just to even think about that stuff a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the best way is to really try to simplify it, though. It's, I always think about my experience when I'm searching. Even the best verticals for call tracking as well, because, we're seeing a lot of e-commerce, models coming out through the pandemic, and not all of them are a fantastic candidate for call tracking. People do communicate in lots of different ways. However, the businesses that do rely on phone calls, if you're not tracking everything, then there's essentially you're doing a disjustice to your campaigns, to your clients, and you're really not reporting on what you should be. So
yeah, very, very well said, James. Very well said. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are truly just at time now. I would encourage any last minute thoughts or questions. If anybody was holding back, please don't be afraid. We got just a couple more moments together. If anybody has anything that they would like to ask, certainly welcome. I think I see a couple of people typing in the chat. We'll give everybody just a couple minutes. All right, friends. Well, I suppose on that note, we're ready to wrap up here today. So on behalf of Sprocket Digital, WildJar, and AgencyAnalytics, from everybody across the globe joining us today, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and learning all about the call experience, the call tracking, and of course, Luke, Josh, James, I can't thank you guys enough for being here. Your insights will go a long way to help a lot of people, I'm absolutely sure. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Jordan.
Happy to help. Thanks.
Hope everybody has a great rest of your day and a great weekend.
You
Thanks
too.
for joining.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.